Okay, we'll talk to everybody. Well, in today's class, we have the following on the menu. We are going to discuss a little bit, as we've been doing prior to Rosh Chodesh, one segment relevant to Rosh Chodesh. So we're going to discuss today in the beginning of the class shortly regarding Shabbos Mevarchim HaChodesh. What is the minhag of blessing the month that we did this Shabbos? Why do we do it? What are any customs relating to it? We're going to go into also Chodesh Adar, idea of a leap year, and the two others that we celebrate, that we have this year. And then we're going to continue with our course material. Okay, so Shabbos Mevarchim. The idea, right, the minhag, we come to shul the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh, or those at home, right, we didn't come to shul, and we read the blessing for the month. Where does this come from? So this is recorded in a number of Rishonim, 800, 900 years ago, that it's customary, meaning that this wasn't an institution of the sages, but it's a custom that came about throughout the ages, to bless the new month, as it says in the Zohar, that the Shabbos has ability to affect the entire week. Shabbos spochen kulu olmin. The entire week is blessed from Shabbos, and Rosh Chodesh is the day that affects the whole month. So the week that contains Rosh Chodesh, the Shabbos before it, has ability to affect that entire month. So that is the reason and source behind this custom.
Am I Yotzi if my husband says the whole Tehillim and I don't?
Saying Tehillim is a different is a minhag of the Rabbi. Yeah, it's a takana of the Rabbi that came about 80 years ago, and
Do I get the scoop like I did it? Because he did it and we're one?
A little bit of the schus, certainly.
Because sometimes it's hard for me and I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to do it. He did it.
Right. A little bit of the schus, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we discussed this in the past, that the husband, certain mitzvahs the husband fulfills with the wife. Yeah, it depends. If a wife doesn't have enough time, she's dealing with the kids, etc., then I can understand.
Yeah.
But if she wants to sleep in, sleep for 18 hours on Shabbos and have the husband do the work, that's something else. Okay, part of the things that we do during this minhag is that we have the custom of announcing the moiled, which is basically announcing the new, the time that the moon will show. I believe we discussed this in the past, that the calculation of the days of Rosh Chodesh, which day is considered, the first of the month, Rosh Chodesh, is based on the calculation of the moiled, which is when the moon will appear, as the moon does a 29-day, 12-hour plus cycle every month, and it appears after that cycle every month. Now, sometimes Rosh Chodesh will be after that date, or sometimes it'll be on the first day of Rosh Chodesh. It depends on the month, but where the minhag is to announce it beforehand. This is a custom first written about in the Siddur of the Shlah, in the Alter Rebbe Siddur, but it's followed by all Ashkenazi communities today. Sephardim not so much, they don't really do this, but Ashkenazim do. We announce the Moiled. And the reason why it's done is because, as we said before, the calculation of the new month of Rosh Chodesh is based on the Moiled, so therefore we tell people the Moiled beforehand.
Wait, what's the definition using a moled?
Moled means new birth, new moon. Yeah, new moon. Moled is new moon, yeah. New moon is not when you see the new moon, but it's when the new orbit begins. After 29 days, 12 plus hours of orbit, the new orbit always begins whether you see it or not. That's the cycle. So that's the moiled that we announce. So notice when they announce, let's say that it's the moiled is Monday night, 12 o'clock with 34 halakim, they're basically saying that the moon, that you will see it, but that the new cycle will begin at that time. After that amount of time, at that time, that's when the moon officially just began its new 360. Another custom that we do during Birchas HaChodesh is the custom to stand. This is recorded in the Magen Avram, that everybody in shul stands up while it's being announced. And the reason brought down is because in the times of the temple or the times of the Sanhedrin, when the new moon was sanctified, so everybody would stand up when the Dayanim, when the Bezdin, the Sanhedrin would say Mekudesh. They would say Mekudesh, Mekudesh 3 times, sanctify 3 times. Everybody would be standing, and so too, us too, when the congregation says the Mevarchem HaChodesh and we announce the time of the Mailot, everybody stands for this reason. However, some argue, some say there's no need to stand, as even in the times of Kiddush HaChodesh, they actually sat. So there's a dispute here.
When you get a blessing, though, it's kind of nice to stand, no?
Well, it depends. Sometimes people sit by blessings, right? It depends. So this is a debate, but nonetheless, the widespread custom is to stand, as writes the Magen Avram, that we stand for Kiddush HaChodesh, as he understands that's how it was originally done back in the day. Okay, regarding Tehillim, this we discussed in length on Thursday's Daily Halacha. Everyone can look there, all the details they mention about Shabbos and Mevarchim Tehillim. We'll just mention a few of the points, highlighted points that we said, and that is that number one, the idea of saying Tehillim before davening is a very old Jewish custom that used to be done before prayer every day.
Oh, wow.
For whatever reason, it's become almost extinct, and Baruch Hashem that the Rebbe Rayatz reenacted it, reinstated it. At least Shabbos and Mevarchim, we get a taste of what the simple Jews of thousands of years used to do before davening. So once a month, we return to what was originally done. The original suggestion was every Shabbos to say the whole Tehillim, but the Rebbe Rayatz vetoed it. We don't know why. He didn't explain, but he said Shabbos and Mevarchim.
Maybe it's too much for us to do.
Maybe, could be. Maybe it's too much. Nonetheless, the idea of saying it Shabbos and Mevarchim, as we already explained earlier, that since this Shabbos affects Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Chodesh affects the whole month, so the saying of Tehillim has an effect. It's a channel of blessing for the entire month. So if you do it Shabbos and Mevarchim, you're affecting the whole year. If you do every Shabbos and Mevarchim, when you say the whole Tehillim. Nonetheless, as we pointed out, saying Tehillim Shabbos and Mevarchim does not overrule or override any obligations that a person has, such as davening Shachris. A person can't override davening Shachris for the sake of saying Tehillim Shabbos and Mevarchim. So it's better to daven Shachris, take a break, and then continue Tehillim later on. Okay, that's it for our Rosh Chodesh discussion, and now we're going to discuss Purim. Aren't we excited? Chodesh Adar is already here. Especially that this year we have 2 months till Nisan, so it's very exciting that you don't have, Purim is coming up, you don't even have to think about Pesach yet.
This might be a little bit like of a stupid question, but if we have 2 Adars, wouldn't that make it 13 months in the year?
It's not a stupid question, that is a correct analysis.
So that is right? There's 13 months?
Absolutely.
How does it,
I mean, right, you tell me if there's 2 extra months. If there's 1 extra month, so it means you get 13.
wow.
So we're going to just discuss a little bit about the leap year and any halachis and minhagim that relate to it. First off, why do we have leap years? So, as we know, that the Jewish calendar follows the moon. Jews are compared to the moon. The moon is something that receives from the sun. It's submissive. It's humble. It's not the main luminary, right? The sun comes up every morning. He makes himself known to everyone like the very loud person in the room. Everyone has to know they're around. The sun makes himself known, everyone knows, but the moon is very discreet. Sometimes you have to search for it. Where's the moon? Where is he? Where's he hiding? Right? He has a lot of humility, and the Jewish people are compared to the moon. The Goyim are compared to the sun. So our calendar surrounds the moon, right? Rosh Chodesh is the moon, the days of the month, etc. However, we have a mitzvah that the holiday of Passover has to be celebrated in the spring. Now we know that the solar year has an excess of 11 days past the lunar year, meaning the lunar cycle of 12 cycles of lunar cycles is a full year. And there's an excess of 11 days, 365 versus 354. If so, the secular calendar, which follows the sun, gets 11 days more each year, and it eventually accumulates. So if we were starting from year 0, the first year we would start New Year 2, 11 days left into the New Years of the sun, the solar New Year. Next year would be 22 days behind. The next year we would be 33 days behind, and so on and so forth, until eventually, throughout the cycle of years, you will end up having the holidays and the months of the Jewish calendar sometimes be in the winter, sometimes be in the summer, sometimes be in the spring. It'll rotate because it's moving 11 days each year. It's moving behind 11 days because there's an excess. And that's in truth how lahavdil the Muslim calendar is. The Muslims also, Muhammad, when he was cherry picking from our Torah, different things he likes, he cherry picked our lunar calendar. However, he didn't do the full job. He wanted there to be a difference between the Muslim calendar and the Jewish calendar. So he says the Jewish calendar, the sages always update every few years so it stays on balance with the solar calendar. However, we are just going to do the lunar calendar. And that's why you can have a little bit of understanding of the Muslim holiday of Ramadan, of how 10 years ago it was in the summer, now it's in the winter. What's going on with these people? Wouldn't it have been smarter just to do it in a way that's only in the winter? You get just winter, from 5, 6 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. It's a smaller fast, shorter fast. But no, sometimes it's in the summer. Sometimes you're fasting 18 hours a day.
Crazy.
For a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's for a month.
We can't complain.
Right? So that's because Muhammad forgot to do the little update. He didn't have the update. Or whoever did it, whichever Muslim scholar innovated this idea of following the lunar calendar. So they switch around. But because we have the mitzvah of keeping Pesach in the spring, therefore we have to add a leap year every few years, and that's what this year is. If you wouldn't add a leap year this year, when would Pesach be? Pesach would be in another month and 2 weeks, and another 6 weeks, and that would mean it would be in March. We need to keep Pesach in April, as the seasons never change from their solar date. Likewise, sunrise and sunset never changes from the solar date. In truth, we mentioned this before, if you have a calendar that follows the sun, Shkia, meaning you have a calendar that mentions the English date, you don't need to update your calendar every year. You can have the same calendar for the rest of your life. Nothing will change. Sunrise on the 2nd or 3rd of February will be the same exact time in your area of the world every 3rd of February, with slight exception due to the solar leap year day. Slight exception, but it's very, very marginal. So basically, sunrise and sunset stay the same because that's the solar calendar. The sun doesn't have a meeting and says, okay, this is going to be our schedule this year, and this is going to be our schedule next year. No, it's the same set schedule for the rest of creation. Hashem created it this way. And so they have, you can download this type of calendar where it's according to the English date, and then you just look up the English date and you know for the rest of your life, when is it Shkia in Tzfas.
So how often do we have a double Adar like this?
What's that?
2 Adars. How often do we have that?
Okay, so we have a calendar which was already established by Hillel HaZaken, and we have a cycle of every 28 years which is written in the Torah, and that's the calendar that we do. We have it set for every, 29 years. It's set that we have this cycle, and sometimes it's every 2 years, sometimes every 3 years.
Oh, okay.
But the idea is that this was created in order to always keep Pesach in the spring and not have a fall behind, in which we'll eventually have Pesach in the winter and have Sukkot in the summer, right?
Wait, so Purim is an Adar. So if it's a double Adar, do we have 2 Purims?
Coming up. Okay, so this was our first discussion, understanding of why at all we have a leap year. Why did they create this? We can also understand that there's certain areas of Judaism where we just cannot tolerate rabbinical debate and what we can call essentially dysfunction. As if you can't come onto an agreement whether this year should be a leap year or not, that means we don't know when Purim is, we don't know when Pesach is. So if one rabbi says this year should be a leap year, and the other one says this year should not be a leap year, their followers will be celebrating Passover at different dates of the year. And that's, so what if you, how do you invite someone for Pesach? As I guess if they are the follower of the other, what if you have relatives of different, this is a big balagan.
Yeah.
So this is an area of Judaism where Baruch Hashem, Hashem arranged that pretty much everyone's on the same page. No machlekes. You won't find, not that I know of, today anything can happen, but I don't know of any group, not even Reform or Conservative, who say, nope, not this year's a leap year, we disagree. Passover is a month earlier. Baruch Hashem, certain things there is unanimous agreement on in order so we can have the holidays together and we don't have machlekes in this. There was once an attempt for about 2-3 years to have a break of this tradition, and there was a great debate between I believe it was Reb Sadia Gaon and the Reish Galusa, Reb Sadia Gaon and the head of the Rabbinical Academy in Eretz Yisrael, and that a huge machlekes if whether a certain month should be full or not full, which would cause an effect on the dates of Rosh Hashanah and the dates of all the holidays in essence. And this went on for 2-3 years in which people living in Eretz Yisrael kept different holidays than people in the diaspora.
Wow.
Yeah.
At different times.
They were a day apart.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. But that ended quite quickly. After 2-3 years, all the Israelites, Eretz Yisrael residents, came into line with the ruling of Babylon, the Babylonian Goinim, and Baruch Hashem, peace was restored. But this was a quite contentious period of Jewish history where, can you imagine, you don't know when Pesach is? You know, well, one Rav says Pesach.
That might be a good thing. I don't
Well,
know.
Shabbos is always the 7th day. That's not a problem. But yes, we do have a situation where there's a machlekes when Shabbos is due to the international date line, and that machlekes is applicable till today. Is the international date line through Shanghai? Is it only after Japan? Is it before Japan? People who travel to Shanghai or Japan, if they follow the Chazon Ish, they will keep 2 days of Shabbos l'chumrah.
Oh, wow.
Shabbos and Sunday. Some people who travel to Hawaii, they also keep 2 days of Shabbos l'chumrah. And all the other holidays, they keep 3 days l'chumrah, because they don't know. Even Yom Kippur, some would fast 2 days.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does it matter which way you travel around the world?
Well, the machlekes would be where the line is. So if you hold the line is in Shanghai and you're in Japan,
Yeah.
Got it.
Best would be in Israel.
Wow.
it's also a way of how you can skip the holiday, right? You can go from Monday to Tuesday. If the holiday's, let's say, on Sunday night, and afternoon of Sunday, you just skip over the border of the international date line. It's already Tuesday. It's already Monday night.
Yeah, but wouldn't a rabbi say that you would have to keep the holiday if it was like a fast
Well,
day?
if you really pass, no. If you really pass,
Really?
it's a different day.
Oh, wow.
You don't carry your days with you. Your day is where you are in the world. Yeah.
But fast days are important, so I thought that maybe you would have to make it
Well,
up.
that would be a very fast day. It would be only a couple of seconds.
Isn't there something though if you're stranded on an island and you don't know what day it is?
Right. Then you count 7 days and do Shabbos. Correct. Yeah. But that's if you don't know. Here we know. Everyone in Japan is saying today is Sunday. And you're saying, no, today is Saturday because I just came from a place where it's Saturday. So, you know.
Wow.
Okay. Halachas and Menhagim relevant to this month, the month of Adar, so it's as follows. Purim Katan will Amir Hashem discuss closer to the time in another week or two. In the meantime, we'll discuss other issues that apply. First of all, first and foremost, is there a mitzvah to increase in joy? This is an important halacha. Do we have to have extra simcha in the month of the first Adar, or is it only the second Adar? This question is asked to discuss in the Pesach, which today it sounds like kind of strange. Just increase in joy. Why do you have to
Right.
ask the question?
Exactly.
Do you have to? It's like what we enjoy being sad, and we need a mitzvah, a command to be instructed. Oh shucks, you got to be in joy. But the truth is, the mitzvah of being in joy also has a price. It means you have to take out time to do things to make yourself more joyful. Or as is a custom in many Lubavitch yeshivas, to dance with music for every day of the month. So now it's 2 months.
Nice.
Now, if you're not the one paying the bill, and you're not the one who cares about taking out time for dancing, so it's just enjoyment. But someone's got to pay for that band, right? So, and someone's got to close the Gemara and dance. So they want to know, is this something I should be doing or should not be doing? So the Yavitz, Yaakov ends and says, nope, only the second month, only Adar Sheni. That's when Mishanichnas Adar and Marbim B'Simcha. But the first Adar, there is no mitzvah to be Marbim B'Simcha. However, the Rebbe, in a talk printed in the Likutei Sichos, negates this opinion and proves that since we celebrate and commemorate the birthday and Yartzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu in Adar Rishon, therefore we also have the mitzvah of Marvim and Simcha in Adar Rishon, as that is one of the reasons why we increase in joy, as the whole victory and miracle that happened in the month of Adar against Haman was due to Moshe's mazel shining in that month. And since we commemorate his birthday on the first, his Yartzeit on the first of Adar Rishon, there's different opinions. Some say he actually was born and died on a leap year of Adar Rishon, because we're going to discuss soon when to commemorate. So if, right, we're going to discuss birthday and Yartzeit halacha soon, but whatever the case is, Zion Adar, back in the day, was a fast day. People would fast. So the question, when do you fast? They would fast in Zion Adar Rishon, which is coming up next week. And so therefore, so too, there's a mitzvah to increase in joy. So therefore, we get 60 days of joy. Because also, 30th of Shvat, which is Rosh Chodesh Adar, coming up this Monday night. Monday night. Okay, we already increase in joy. When do we celebrate Purim? So we all know the answer, but I want to give a little background here. This question was asked in the Gemara in Megillah, page 6b. When should we celebrate Purim? Once upon a time, this wasn't such a simple decision. Do you celebrate in the second Adar, or do you celebrate the first Adar? Which Adar is the main one? So a debate in the Gemara ensues, and the final ruling is that the second Adar is the main month, meaning that the added Adar is the first one, and therefore we should celebrate in the second one. And the reason for this is because we want to approximate the Yeshua, the salvation of Purim holiday, to the redemption from Egypt. We don't want to give ourselves a month in between of nothing. We want to approximate them together, and that's why we celebrate it in the second. However, we do not celebrate it twice. Why not just have twice Purim? 2 Adars, you should get twice the Purim. Why not? So the Gemara says, the reason is because we learn from a verse in Esther that we only celebrate Purim one time a year, one time annually. And in other words, all the different activities that we do on Purim, which we say for Purim, we don't do the rest of the year. One time's enough. You don't have to repeat it. And so that's what we learn from. So therefore, we only do it one time. And since we want to approximate, therefore, it's done by Adar Sheni. Nonetheless, there are minhagim of Purim Katan. As I said, we will save this for closer to the date. We will now conclude with a discussion regarding birthdays and yartzeits. This is a very important question. When should the birthday present be given, and when should the birthday cake be eaten? If a person was born in Adar, do you do it the first Adar and the second Adar? Now to say just do it twice, that's nice for the birthday boy, but what about his parents? That means 2 birthday cakes, 2 birthday parties, friends coming over twice, right? So what do we do? So the truth is, the main halachic question, halacha in Shulchan Aruch, you don't find discussion of celebrating birthdays. It wasn't something that was in to celebrate birthdays. However, what we do find is regarding bar and bas mitzvahs. It's very important to know, when is this child considered bar bas mitzvah? When are they chayiv in Torah mitzvahs? So we have 3 scenarios. 2 are pretty easy to know the ruling for, and 1 is more complex. Well, let's just finish this. First case, a person was born in a leap year, and this year is a leap year, so it's quite simple. Follow whatever month and day you were born in. So if you were born on the 2nd of Adar Rishon, this year you will celebrate your bar mitzvah or birthday on the 2nd of Adar Rishon. So that makes perfect sense. However, if he was born in a leap year, like this year, all those that will be born in the 2 Adars of this year, and the year of question, either the birthday or the bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah, is not a leap year, so that's also pretty simple. There's only 1 Adar, so what are the choices? Either Adar or what? You're going to do in Shvat, you're going to do in Nisan. Adar or Adar, there's no choice. So it ends up a funny situation where someone who's born later celebrates his bar mitzvah earlier. For example, someone who was born on the someone who was born on the 29th of Adar Rishon, and another person was born on the 1st of Adar Sheni. So the person born on the 29th of Adar Rishon is older, right? He's older by 2 days. Nonetheless, the younger person halachically and biblically becomes obligated in mitzvahs 28 days earlier than the older person. Strange, huh? The 29th of Adar Rishon birth baby becomes bar mitzvah the 29th of Adar. Sorry, becomes bar mitzvah the 29th of Adar without a leap year in that year on the 29th. While 1st of Adar Sheni becomes bar mitzvah the 1st of Adar of that year. So that's the funny situation we have, which is explained in the Talmud and in Chassidus, that Hashem arranges the body based on the calendar. So actually, physiologically, the maturity of the body of the person born on the 29th of Adar Rishon will be slower than that born on the 1st of Adar Sheni. He will become bar das, bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah earlier than the former. You find this also regarding many other halachas, that if the calendar of the moon cycle was changed, it affects different physiological changes in the body. So those were the two easy cases. But now we have the more complex case. You were born in a non-leap year, and now it's a leap year. You have 2 Adars to choose from. Which Adar do you choose, the 1st or the 2nd? The answer: by a birthday, a bar mitzvah, a bas mitzvah, and I emphasize this because by a yahrzeit we will see a different discussion. Okay, so by a birthday, a bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, they celebrate it in the 2nd Adar. The 2nd is the main one. So if he was born, whatever date he was born in Adar of the non-leap year, he celebrates that in Adar 2, Adar Beis. That's the halacha. We do not have debate under this, so this is what everybody would be following. Now we have a peculiar situation of what does a person do if they were born on the 30th of Adar Rishon. Let's say the way it works like this. Every leap year, right, 2 Adars, has the 1st Adar containing 30 days and the 2nd Adar containing 29 days. So what does someone do if they're going to be born this year, or in a previous year they were born in a leap year, on the 30th day of Adar Rishon? They will never have a 30th day of Adar Rishon unless it's a leap year. They will never have 30. Adar is 29 days regularly. The month next is Nisan is Chasar, is always 29 days. So how do they become bar bas mitzvah? Does it take them 3 times the amount of time to become bar mitzvah? Do they only become 13 or 12 years old when they're not 30 or when they're 25? Right? How does it work? So the halach here is like this. Is a big machlokes. Everyone agrees you have a birthday every single year. That's good news. On the other hand, there's a debate of when that birthday is. Some say the 30th of Shvat. Follow the 30th of Shvat. Shvat takes over that 30th of Adar Rishon. So they would celebrate 30th of Shvat. Others say that you would celebrate the 1st of Adar. Others say you celebrate the 1st of Nisan. Bottom line, the way rule regarding a bar bas mitzvah, they should begin all the mitzvahs of obligation already on the 30th of Shvat. But anything that is about that he wants to be yeh to someone kiddush, he wants to do any mitzvah that an adult can do for behalf of somebody else, daven for the alma to be chazan, he has to wait till the 1st of Nisan. So we'd have to wait a whole month until he can begin being chazan. Nonetheless, the Rebbe did give a directive to an individual that regarding birthday, since it's not biblical or rabbinical, it's just good customs, giving charity, learning more, doing favors to people. You can be machmer and do it in both months. So, minhagei yom holedes, the customs of the birthday that we keep, can be done in both months of Adar. If somebody was born in Adar of a non-leap year, they can celebrate that, commemorate that in both times. Now, when it comes to a yahrzeit, some things are similar and some things are different. It's not exactly the same as what we said by a birthday. By a yahrzeit, so once again, if the yahrzeit occurred in a leap year, so this year's a leap year, you would follow the same date. If the yahrzeit occurred in a leap year and now it's not a leap year, then once again, there's no other option. You follow that date in the month of Adar, which once again would mean that the person who died later would have an earlier yahrzeit than the person who died earlier. Right? The person who passed away on the 29th of Adar Rishon versus someone else passed away on the 1st of Adar Sheni, the 1st of Adar Sheni would have his yahrzeit the 1st of Adar. The person who passed away on the 29th of Adar Rishon would have his yahrzeit only 28 days later. The tricky situation is when this year is a non-leap year, and now it's a yipur. How do you solve? So anyone who had a yahrzeit in Adar of a non-leap year, this year what do? When do they commemorate? We have a machlekes between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. Some place can rule, this is the ruling of the Mechaber, you follow the second Adar, just like the birthday. Others, the Ramah say, you follow the first Adar. You commemorate on the first Adar. Now, what do you do if the son is Ashkenazi but the mother was Sephardi? It's tricky. So the Magen Avram truly says, do 2 yahrzeits. This was pertinent, especially back in the day when people would fast. It was like a neder that you fasted. Today we don't do that anymore. But nonetheless, bottom line is that what the widespread custom that most people do is in order to get the yahrzeits of both possible days, we don't want it to be considered only a yahrzeit for Sfaradim, only for Ashkenazim. Therefore, we do both times.
But
so
they used to fast on yahrzeits?
Used to, yes. Of a parent, specifically a parent. So if somebody's parent, father or mother passed away during Adar, so of a non-leap year, so in a leap year they would basically do them in Hagim in both months. Okay, that is all for our other discussion, and we're going to now move on with our course. Okay, we'll begin with a halacha we mentioned last week, to which there was some surprise and wonderment at, and I now understand a little better of why there was wonderment at what I said, and we're going to go into that a little more. So we mentioned that somebody who woke up before Aleis HaShachar, they're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. What page? We're on page 211. In my PDF, it could be a little different here. So halacha 13, answering amen to another person's Birchas HaShachar. So somebody who, remember we discussed this last week, somebody woke up before Aleis HaShachar, can he say all the blessings? And I said, you can only say the blessings you became obligated in, meaning you received their benefit from. So you woke up, you can say L'kai Neshama, you wash hands from Tumah, you can say on to the Yadayim. Many of the blessings you can say, but some you didn't hear the rooster crow, so you can't say Nesan Sech Vivina. Or, any of the other blessings that the person, you didn't get dressed, you're still in pajamas, you can't say the Baruch of Mal B'Sharum, and so on and so forth. So the best thing is to avoid the problem, just wait until Aleis HaShachar and then say all the brachas. So, I explained last week why we rule this way, and it's written in the Alter B'Siddur, it's also written in the Ktseis HaShulchan, and it's also agreed upon by many of the Chabad Rabbanim I spoke to. However, the English Siddur, which I happen to use as well, the English Kahas Siddur, which was first published in Tafshin Lamed Ches, that's 1978. Many new editions have come out since then. The blue Kahas Siddur. So they have halachic instructions there, and in the halachic instruction there that they have written, they write amongst the different things they write. They also write that if you wake up past midnight, you can say all the blessings. So, obviously, what we stated is not in complicity with what does not comply with what they wrote. And the answer, what they write in their siddur is not a translation of the Alter Rebbe's rulings. They took an individual or two individuals, whoever they took, sometimes we know, sometimes we don't know, who were tasked with formatting halachas for the English reader. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they are all-inclusive of many different approaches, but usually not. They want to keep it simple. So they're writing something very conclusive, which sounds like this is the only road to this area. This is the halacha, but in truth there may be a lot of background and maybe a lot of And that's okay, that's fine. They don't want to confuse people. Some say this, some say that. One of the people in the rabbinical editorial board of that siddur I know well, and that is his approach in general. Keep it simple, even if it means my way or the highway. Better keep it simple than to let people know of all the approaches and all the opinions. That's his approach. I spoke to him about this. My approach is very different. I say you can keep it simple if it's simple. If it's not simple, then a person has to ask a Rav. That's what you have Rabbanim for. So if that's your Rav, that's fine. Okay, it's different approaches. But nonetheless, regarding that statement in the Siddur, I've already mentioned last week that, and the funny thing, how did I discover this? Because I learned, I davened from that Siddur, but I never read, all the directives that they write in English. So somebody asked me, they said, I don't understand, it says in the Siddur that you're supposed to, not from this class. A few people asked this question the last 2 weeks. I woke up early and I want to know if I can say brachas, and I read in the Siddur, I'm like, what Siddur are you talking about? And then he told me the Tilas Hashem English editions, and then I understood where this is coming from, how it became ingrained into people that you can say the brachas before them. There is such an opinion. We're not saying there's not such an opinion. There is such an approach, but nonetheless we explained the Alter Rebbe in his Siddur, the Alter Rebbe Siddur, he writes explicitly that when you wake up before midnight, after midnight, before Alois, you can say those blessings you became obligated in, which means to say that whatever benefit you received, you can say. It also makes a lot of sense, as we explained last week, that ideally you can only say blessings you receive benefit from. How can you say bracha of shahak if not having a drink? Oh, we rule like the Ramban and the Rosh, that we follow the benefit of the world. The Poskim rule that that's only from Aleis HaShachar. The benefit of the world only begins from Aleis HaShachar. And therefore, how can you say a bracha if you didn't get a benefit from it? That is the position of the Alter Rebbe in his Siddur. Does everyone agree to that? No. Many Sfaradim, initially they wake up after Chatzos, after midnight, and they say all the morning blessings, whether they heard the rooster or not. That's fine. That's their approach. It's their opinion. That is not the opinion of the Alter Rebbe in his Siddur, and therefore what they wrote in their Siddur is definitely not fully accurate, and perhaps not accurate at all for those who follow the Alter Rebbe.
Oh, so what are they going to do about it?
I don't know. An editorial board, they have they are the owners of that Siddur. They decide what to do with it.
So apparently they think it's okay.
Obviously. But yeah, I agree with you that it's always important. We could point out this doesn't, God forbid, point a finger and say that they were malpractice in their work. No one's perfect. I found, I can't remember right now, but I'm sure I found, mistakes in my work. And everybody has mistakes, and no one's an angel. No, everyone makes mistakes. It's only normal. I'm not talking about just typos. I'm talking about also halachic errors. Right. It's when you're writing, a lot of pages of material. Sometimes, and errors happen. They happen. We're human, okay? And it's important to know that. It's important to know that for the following reason. There's two mistakes people make. One mistake is that we give a Rav or a Sefer or whatever it is a godlike status where it's perfect. And therefore, if we have a question on it, we don't bother approaching the author. We don't bother questioning. It's important to question. It's important for us to be the checks and balances of everything in life, including Judaism. If we see something stunning, we don't have to just sit there with closed arms and just follow. Maybe it's a mistake. So what we can do is politely bring it up to the individuals, and quite often they say, thank you very much. I missed this, it's a mistake. And that's normal and that's fine. The problem is that a person who gives a godlike mentality to these works or to individuals, to Rabbanim, the second they see they made a mistake, they lose all faith in them. And they said, wow, oh my gosh, so this person's actually human, so I don't have to follow him in anything now. So I'm also, we're on the same level. We're together, we're equal. He makes mistakes, I make mistakes, right? This is very silly. Obviously, someone who's trained and educated in a certain field, just because he may have made a mistake in that field doesn't mean his opinion and his knowledge is equal to the person who doesn't know anything about the field. Mistakes happen to everybody. Let's be honest. If we had to field mistakes of every person in their field, there would be no one left as a professional, because everybody makes mistakes somewhere. So that's just a side point. Nonetheless, If anybody wants to bring it up with them, they're more than welcome. I'll see if I have time to. It's very time consuming, that I can assure you. Back and forth and explaining. It definitely would. I have a relationship with him, and unfortunately in the past things have not been fixed, even though I've showed them to be inaccurate. Some people are, they just make a mistake, and some people, they're not very responsible about fixing the mistakes for the future. I don't know their calculations. I don't understand it, but it's one thing to miss something. It's another thing to have something brought up and acknowledge it and then leave it as the status quo. But also the problem is with printing, okay, is that back in the day, not just back in the day, even today in a lot of publishing companies, they use what's called, I forgot the word, but it's basically like a film. It's a printing film. So they have a film created of the book, and that's what they use to print from. So it's not like go on Microsoft Word and fix the words, put not instead of yes. It's no, what I'm saying, they have a set film which is very expensive. To change that is work, it's money, so that also affects reasons why. You'll see in the old books, well, the good thing about these books is that these are digital. I don't have any of that film to print from, so I can update it, and the next day already have the new, published, the new version up. But you'll see in old prints of back in the day, whenever they would have new editions, you'll see in the back, they always have added footnotes or added things in the back. Why in the back? Put it in the front. Put it where it's supposed to be fixed, because they didn't want to invest the time and money, which was a lot, I guess, in order to go back there. In any event, okay. But yeah, I once saw, it was once a sefer I was reading, and I'm like, what this person is writing is off. It's just off. It's not true. And I couldn't understand. And then I was flipping in the back of the book, and I see in the back of the book he writes, oh, by the way, there's a mistake on this and this page and this place. It's not meant to be written this way. It's written that way. But nothing was written in the original, and this was a new print. Okay, let's continue. Bottom line is that, as I said, there is a debate on this subject, but my approach based on the Alter B'Sid is very clear. If you didn't receive the benefit, you have to push it off until Aleisa Shachar. Next, we discussed regarding fulfilling the brachas with somebody else. We said that last week. Regarding Birchas HaShachar, you need to have a minyan available according to the Alter Rebbe and according to other poskim in order to be Yetze. You can't just be Yetze from a single individual or even 9 people saying it for you. There is a custom recorded, and this is in Chassidish communities, this is very much followed, of answering 90 amens every single day, right? That's the tzaddik, right? Tzaddik is 90 amens, and the answer is 90 amens, tes kadeshim. So some people are very particular. That's not written in Shulchan Aruch, the tzaddik part, but the idea of answering 90 amens is recorded. So some people, they ask someone, say, they'll ask 9 people, or I don't know, say 7 people to say brachas, you get 18, so you get your 90 amens into that way. It's a very nice thing. This is not, absolutely not, unless it's bracha like Uvnei Yerushalayim. No, we don't say amen to our own bracha. This is not necessarily a widespread Chabad custom. We don't, first we don't say brachas in shul. We say brachas privately in our homes. So it's usually not said in shul at all for answering of amen. And we haven't seen anybody being particular in this and getting the 90 amens in a day, but it is written in the Alter Shulchan Aruch that it is a good thing to try to get 90 amens in. Today they have an organization that's they're called, I think they're called the Amen organization, something of that sort, which is, they have all these gemachim today, so they're an Amen gemach. Literally, they have people. I'm not joking. In every shtibel or shul that are, some of them are even paid, okay, that they are set every day to gather people around them, and they'll say the morning blessings and a whole bunch of blessings out loud to be mazaka people in the amens. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So.
We also have bracha parties. There's people that do that at
bracha
events,
parties,
where they have a lot of food and they say different brachas and people say amen.
Right, that's a food party also.
And also a food party, they can get an event
Food party. Because that's not right, but that's only about 4 or 5 blessings, and when one person says it, then how can you go ahead and say it afterwards? So it ends up being more of a food party than a bracha party. But okay, I get the point. Especially if you're educating them in blessings, you're teaching them what to bless from different things, 100%. Okay. A person who already daven shachris did not yet say morning blessings, can they still do so? Do you fulfill the morning blessings with shachris or not? That is our question. Ever happened to anyone? We don't need any confessions.
I think I've had that happen to me.
Okay, so this is a question is dealt with in the Paiskim, in the Shulchan Aruch, in chapter 52, and what is written is as follows. Even if a person daven shachris, it doesn't exempt them or fulfill for them the morning blessings. One has nothing to do with the other. Certain mitzvahs are fulfilled in shachris, Ahavas Hashem, Shema Yisrael, Shemana Esrei, Pesukei Zimra. That's not fulfilled in the morning blessing. So therefore the morning blessings still have to be recited with exception to two. One, some say that Elikai Neshama, the blessing of Elikai Neshama, is already fulfilled. 1 second. I think I lost a page here. Is that the situation here? Can I borrow your book? I have a page missing here from this PDF. It's an old PDF. I don't know where I got it from. Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm missing a whole page here in this PDF. That's the strangest thing. Oh, no, I know what happened. Okay, never mind. It's been found. Here you go. Here. It's a special setting on the PDF that hides every other page. Okay, there we go. Now we have it. Okay, so the Rappaiskim will say that Elikai Neshama is already fulfilled within davening when a person says the bracha of Mechayim Eisim. If you're saying Baruch Atah Hashem Mechayim Eisim, resurrection, that includes the fact that you woke up in the morning. That's what some Paiskim say. Other Paiskim argue and say, come on. One is talking about the future when all the dead will be resurrected. This is talking about thanking Hashem for the daily pleasure of being able to wake up. Bottom line is like this. The Alter Rebbe rules that lichatchila, you should always say brachas before davening in order to avoid this debate. But if you're already daven, you can still go ahead and say the bracha of Elikai Neshama. You're not exempt. The main ruling is that you can say it. Regarding Al Natilas Yadayim, that's already a little trickier. If a person didn't say the bracha of Al Natilas Yadayim and they already daven shachris, according to many Rishonim, the whole purpose of the bracha on Natilas Yadayim is to prepare for shachris. If you already daven shachris, how can you now say the blessing? The Mishnah Berurah concludes as follows. Wash your hands before mincha and say the bracha of Al Natilas Yadayim. People are going to see you and say, wow, this is a Rambam Jew. I've never seen someone do this before. Wash hands with the blessing before every prayer. But in truth, that is showing that they simply forgot to say it beforehand and they're making it up now. So that's another option for Al Natilas Yadayim. And however, then there is one which we do conclude that you cannot make up, and that's Birchas HaTorah. If you davened already, and then you realize you didn't say morning blessings, including Birchas HaTorah, you cannot say Birchas HaTorah anymore. What's the reason? As within the blessing of Ahavas Olam, where we thank Hashem, or bless Hashem, right, for giving us the Torah and giving us that it should be entered into our hearts, all of those wordings, we mentioned their Matan Torah, we think about Zeichel Matan Torah. So we already fulfill the mitzvah of the bracha of Talmud Torah in that blessing of Ahavas Olam. And saying Shema right afterwards is like the learning Torah you do after saying the blessing. So all the ingredients were fulfilled, and therefore you cannot repeat Birchas HaTorah after you daven Shachris. I had an individual once call me. He had buried their relative. Their father passed away at a good ripe old age, and he was buried at night, and until the burial they were in a state of aninus, in a state of the limbo period between death and burial for over 24 hours. So that morning the halacha is that until the burial occurs, they don't say brachas, they don't do any of the positive commands, and of course they can't say Birchas HaTorah. It's forbidden, he's not allowed to. So the burial took place at night, and he asked me, what should he do? Should he say Birchas HaTorah? He wants to now sit down and learn. He's been 24 hours starved from Torah learning. has to sit down and learn something. Is he allowed to learn? So I asked him, did you already daven Ma'ariv? He said, of course daven Ma'ariv. What does that have to do with anything? Oh, in Ma'ariv we also have a blessing discussing the giving, right? We have the blessing also of the Avaseinu Aftanu. That also fulfills the mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah, and therefore he was not able to say it again. But if he asked me this before Ma'ariv, we would tell him to go ahead and say Birchas HaTorah at that time. We're going to get more into Birchas HaTorah later on of all the details. Let's just finish up here the Birchas HaShachar. We have a few details left and we're done. Do you have to stand up upon saying the morning blessings? Answer. I know in the English Siddur, that I did see as well, it says before Al Natilas Yadayim to stand up. And that is true. That's a halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. Before Al Natilas Yadayim, does a person have to stand for the bracha of Al Natilas Yadayim? So it depends. Al Natilas Yadayim for bread. In Adin, you don't have to stand for. You can say it's sitting. Now, I know most of us stand, right? Does anyone have a confession, a sitting confession to do? No one sits, right? But the Rebbe would sit. We saw it with our own eyes. The Rebbe would be given a kvar to wash from, and it would wash, and the Rebbe was sitting, said the bracha sitting. So people who are wondering, how can the Rebbe sit? There's nothing to wonder about. The Shulchan Aruch gives clear guidelines for when you must stand for a blessing and when not. So let's review those guidelines. A blessing, this is brought in chapter 8 in Shulchan Aruch, a blessing which is an obligation that the Torah requires you to do. You must stand for, such as, for example, it's not optional to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. It's not optional to hear Megillah on Purim, and it's not optional to shake lulav and esrog. That's an obligation. Lighting candles is not optional, it's an obligation. So whenever it's an obligation, you must say the bracha. However, someone who wants to shecht a cow, you have to eat meat. It's a mitzvah deraisa to eat meat. No one's forcing you to eat meat. You want to eat meat, you got to shecht it. You got to shecht it, you have to say a bracha. Doesn't mean you have to stand. You can sit down, you can enjoy life. You can lie back, and not suggested for the shechting purposes. But they put the cow on its back, so if you want to be equal to it, you can go on your back, say the bracha and shecht. There is no isser, you don't have to stand when you say a bracha. So to trumas and maisus, do you have to stand when you're separating trumas and maisus? Answer is no. You have to eat the onion, you have to eat the tomato, eat something else. You don't have to eat that product. Since it's not an obligation, it's voluntary, so too, you don't have to stand up for the bracha. Who give me another example that women do? Fresh's challah. You have to eat bread. You have to eat this bread. You can buy bread from the store. So since it's optional, therefore, technically, you can't sit down when you say the bracha of a fresh's challah. And so on and so forth. Now, let's use that same logic. A person who's washing for bread. You have to eat bread? No. So you can sit when you say the bracha of Al Natilas Yadayim. However, washing in the morning, is that optional? No. It's an obligation, so you must stand for that bracha. That's the difference. The rest of the blessings, however, another example where you must stand is the Birchas HaTorah. You have to say Birchas HaTorah before you learn Torah. You can't ask, do I have to learn Torah? Yes, you do. You have to learn Torah, so it's an obligation. So you must stand when you say the bracha. However, the rest of the blessings, they are not obligatory, meaning they're not mitzvahs. When we say, Elikai Neshama, or Ashayotza, or Hanesim Lasech Vivina, they're brachas of hana'ah. They're not brachas of mitzvahs, and therefore there was never an institution to stand for them. And you don't have to. You can say them sitting. And that's what the Sephardim do. Look at the Sephardim. The Sephardim sit for all the morning blessings. That you should initially stand in order to get the benefit from it. But you can stand and then quickly sit back down. Now, the English Siddur did us a favor. Instead of writing before Al Natilas Yadayim, here we stand, here you can sit, here you can stand, here you can sit, and by the time you're done, you're like, wow, this is my morning exercise already. So they just wrote in the beginning, we stand for morning blessings, which in truth is the widespread Ashkenazi custom. The Yavitz explains, you're right that min adin you don't have to stand for these brachas once it's passed on Al Natilas Yadayim. But since they're blessings of praise to Hashem, it's proper, it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to adapt to stand for them. And that's why practically this is what we do. We stand for morning blessings, but it's not a min adin that you have to. So a person who's not feeling well, a person who's sick, he has a choice. I can either lie down for another half hour to an hour and delay morning blessings. Or I can say them now in my lying down position. What's better to do? It's better to say it lying down. And not to delay and maybe forget and lose the main time, which we already explained is as soon as you wake up, of saying the morning blessings, because it says you say them standing.
There's many times in the morning, because Baruch Hashem, I say it, like every day, so I know it like pretty much by heart, but then I'm like, oh, a couple of times I don't know if I forgot like one of the paragraphs. So now with the sitter, that blue sitter that I daven from, I'm hesitant to look back to see like how to do it, because if they made a mistake. So what do I do if
I didn't understand the question. Sorry.
So, okay, let me just make it simple. I'm saying the morning brachas, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I forgot a paragraph in the morning brachas.
You meaning a blessing?
A blessing, yeah. So I finished saying it, but then I'm like, I don't think I said that.
Yeah.
So what do I do?
What do you do?
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
You can make.
That's what I do now, but I'm saying. But so what do I do? Can
So
I repeat it?
that's one of the things we did here. One who is in doubt. I don't know how I skipped it. I actually skipped it, and because of you, now I'm going back.
Oh.
You see that?
Baruch Hashem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the answer is whenever in doubt by blessings, you do without. That's the rule.
So I don't say it again.
Not only do you not say it again, it won't help for you to find someone who does. You have people, whenever they're in doubt, they ask someone, did you say morning blessings yet?
Yeah.
See this all the time in shul. According to most places, it doesn't help. According to Alter Rebbe, it doesn't help. You need a minion. It doesn't help to find someone to now. The brach v'antis yadayim, that's birchas ha-mitzvah, so that it does help. So you can hear the brach v'antis on someone else. You can hear the blessings of the Torah from somebody else. But the blessings of shvach, of praising Hashem, only a minion can be yay to somebody. So it doesn't help to hearing it from another individual. We have two customs that have been taught to us by the Rebbe Rashab. And one of them is to say the morning blessings near the window. To look at the sky and the heavens.
Oh, I know somebody who does that actually.
Beautiful. Well, it's always a good thing to look out the window, see the sun, see nature. Reminds us of, right? It's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch that shuls are specifically to have windows pointing to the heavens. So if you get distracted, you can look at the heavens and be reminded of God. That's halacha. The Rebbe Marash once told one of his chassidim that he should have big windows in his house and always look outside during davening. Not like on the streets, like upwards. And that's what he did for his whole life. The Rebbe Rayatz describes this in length, this individual and his davening techniques. And as it says, that when you raise your eyes to the heavens, you see, Mi bara Elu, who created these, it brings fear of heaven into the heart. And therefore, windows is very important for davening. So also here, when a person has the morning blessings, that was the custom of Rebbe Rashab, and that's what people try to do. Now, an interesting question, not relevant for women, but nonetheless, the lesson is interesting. A woman can also take something out of this, is regarding, do men wear a gartel when they say the morning blessings? The Rebbe Rashab says no gartel. The Rebbe's father says yes, you do. So the Rebbe once in a Sikha explained this, and he said the following, that the morning blessings of a Jew, that's what gives him the ability to start off his day. We discussed this in the past from the Rashash. Remember last week we discussed with the Rashash of Shalom Sharabi, that this is what brings an encompassing divine light onto the person. An encompassing divine, why do we have a gartel to separate between the lower extremities and the upper extremities? So it's something that's already dealing with, separating good from evil. But the Or Makif, it's able to cover everything, and it's able to, in other words, it doesn't need for a person to go ahead and make their own separation. A person, even with his impurity, can go ahead and say morning blessings. And that's why the Rebbe explained that a gartel is not necessary when a person says it. So that's just, again, emphasizes the importance of morning brachas and how that is really the start of our day in giving us that power. Okay, we have finished. Let's talk a long time, the morning blessings. We have finished the morning blessings, and now it's already nighttime now we're up to Birchas HaTorah, okay? Birchas HaTorah is officially part of morning blessings, but it's its own chapter. It has its own details. We will discuss here different matters that are relevant, especially to women. So let's first discuss the importance of Birchas HaTorah. The Shulchan Aruch begins that a person has to be very, very careful to recite the blessing of Birchas HaTorah. Why? As the land of Israel was made desolate, due to that the Torah sages and their students were not careful to recite this blessing prior to their learning. It says that the Jewish people were punished with galus, with exile from the land of Israel, because they weren't careful in this bracha. Now, why were they not careful in this bracha, writes the Torah and the Alter Rebbe? The reason is they were lax in reciting the blessing because the learning of Torah was not held in their eyes to such esteem to require a blessing, and therefore they were negligent in its recital. They didn't view it as such of important stature, and therefore they didn't feel it deserved the bracha. Thus, although they learned a lot of Torah learning they had tremendous amounts of, great quantities of Torah learning. But since they didn't look at it with prestige, they didn't view Torah learning as something of the highest caliber that deserves a blessing to Hashem, the Torah did not protect them. And therefore, the Poskim conclude, Alter Rebbe concludes, every person must be very careful that the Torah, which is the object of pleasure, which God joyfully engages in daily, be of importance in his eyes. I want to discuss this a little bit. There's a lot of depth in these statements that are discussed in the Poskim. It sounds kind of harsh to throw an entire nation into exile, make the land desolate just because we didn't say a bracha. I mean, we've heard stories of, from mechanchim of, this parent did this and this to the child because the child didn't bench, and because of that the child went off the derech. I mean, it's a bracha, okay, so we relax in the bracha. I mean, we need to have measured responses. Right? It should be a measured response. Why do we have one of the greatest of all punishments, the land becoming desolate and being thrown into exile, simply because we were lax with blessings? I'm sure there were many other sins that took place as well. Why the emphasis here, that it's viewed as something so severe? So this question was asked by the Bach, not the composer, the Bayis Chodesh, Rabbi Yoel Sirkis, father-in-law of the Turizov, of the Taz, lived in the 1600s in Poland. He wrote a commentary on the Torah. And he asked this question. The Bach asks, why did Hashem give such a strong punishment? And he explains over there. The idea here, it wasn't just that the individuals didn't say a bracha. Could be they did say the brachas. They said morning blessings. They didn't skip it. They said it. But the brachas was said without enthusiasm, without energy, without excitement. It was very plain. Torah learning was viewed as a very habitual wisdom. And says the Bach that this is a great mistake, as the entire purpose that Hashem gave us the Torah in his wording, Shenes atzem atzmuseinu v'mohusay v'atzmusay yizbarach. Hashem gave us the Torah for the sake of our souls and our bodies uniting with him, with the Creator. And he uses the wording there, and the Torah was given to us for dveikus to Hashem. It sounds like Baal Shem Tov philosophy. This was Baal Shem Tov philosophy almost 200 years earlier, in the words of the Bach. And he's saying because the Torah learning wasn't done on this caliber, on this level, people learned Torah as a wisdom. They didn't learn it as a vehicle of attaching to God, using it to attach to the Eibishter, and therefore it didn't have that enthusiasm and spirituality to it. Therefore, the Torah didn't protect them. This touches on a famous debate between the Chassidim and the Misnagdim. What is the purpose of Torah learning? Chaim of Volozhin famously writes in his Nefesh HaChaim, Musar Sefer, that unlike the Chassidim, the Baal Shem Tov, who say the purpose of Torah learning is to attach to Hashem, Dveikus, the purpose of Torah learning is Lishma, for the sake of the Torah. To novelize in Torah, to understand Torah, it's for its own purpose. Its goal is itself. While the Chassidic philosophy always was, no, that the Torah is viewed as a conduit to reach God. The Kotzker, Menachem Mendel of Kotzk, the father of the Ger dynasty, he stated the following one time. The Chassidim practice Judaism, they learn Torah for the sake of serving God. The Misnagdim serve Hashem for the sake of serving the Torah. It's a very deep saying. Saying that the main thing by Chassidim is God. And everything in religion is surrounding attaching to God. A vehicle of how to attach to God. When the Misnagdim looked at it, the Torah learning was a goal in and of itself. And this is pretty much written out in Nefesh HaChaim. Even though he was very gentle and very, maybe you can call politically correct or nice about how he described the different issues that he argued on with the Chassidim, he does make this point there and arguing on this point philosophically. Nonetheless, this idea of the Baal Shem Tov didn't innovate. We have right here in the Bach. The Bach explains that this is the reason why the land was made desolate. Because the people who learned Torah didn't hold it in such prestige. There's another aspect of how to understand this as well. If a person asks someone, "No, did you go to college? Do you have a degree in something? Do you have any?" So if a person tells them, "I was a bach in yeshiva," a lot of the natural reaction is, you basically did nothing with your life. You haven't really accomplished anything. Why is it that someone who sits in a history class learning about what color apple George Washington had, or the different battles of the Greeks and the Romans, or abstract philosophy, or whatever else they're learning when they get a PhD, or someone who learned poetry, they receive a master's in poetry, literature. That's accomplishment. But someone in yeshiva is sitting learning Torah and receives a degree in Torah learning, So unfortunately, this is a similar epidemic, a similar issue that the Alter Rebbe here, the Paiskim, are pointing out. The Torah wasn't considered of importance in their eyes. Now, it happens to be you have people in yeshiva who don't do anything. You have people in college who don't do anything. Right? They just get the paper. So it works both ways. But the idea the person views that a person who's sitting and learning Torah, that they're not accomplishing anything, is a sign she'eina Torah chashuva b'einayim. And therefore, it used to be that in Jewish society it was the biggest prize that a parent would look for to marry off their daughter to a Talmud Chacham. That's what they searched for, that's what they looked for. Today, most things have changed. They want to know, what college are you going to? What are you getting your degree in? How much parnasa have you already brought in per month? All these other questions are being asked. And they don't really care about the other aspect. So this is a mistake. But here we're discussing something much deeper, that even when the person learns Torah, the learning has to be done for a specific purpose, and that is to attach to Hashem, for dveikus to the Eibishter. Based on this, the Alter Rebbe concludes that the Torah is to be of such importance in one's eyes that when you recite the brachas of Birchas HaTorah, you should rejoice a greater joy than any other worldly pleasure. Meaning so in other words, the saying of all the other brachas, obviously the more the merrier, the more enthusiasm you have, the merrier, but when it comes to Birchas HaTorah, special concert, and this applies to both men and women. Women say Birchas HaTorah, they're obligated as well, we're going to learn. So there's no difference here. The bracha of Birchas HaTorah has to be said with joy, of greater joy. In other words, when you contemplate that a person accomplishes his attachment to God through Torah learning. This is the tool of attaching to Hashem. And a person who doesn't show joy, or doesn't care to show joy, or doesn't think about showing joy, that's what caused the desolate of the land. It shows that the Torah is not important in their eyes. So therefore, if a person needs to wake up a little bit before saying morning blessings properly so they have kavanah, they can do so. Most people, if you roll right out of bed and start saying morning blessings, the mind is in a different world still. The installation of the soul has not reached 100%, maybe 30, maybe 50, maybe 70. And the person is doing lip service. His emotions and feelings and concentration aren't with him. So it's important for Birchas HaTorah at least that the person does say it with proper intent and concentration. It's very important. The Alter Rebbe continues regarding the rewards. One who recites the blessing of Torah in such a manner with happiness, with joy, merits that he will receive what he prays for in the bracha. Tia tzetzeinu, tzetzetzetzeinu. That our descendants, our children and grandchildren will be learning Torah in a faithful manner, Lishma, and that the line of Torah will not cease from his family. On the other hand, one who is not careful in this will not merit seeing his descendants follow this path. Today, the 3rd of February, what are we in?
Yes.
The 3rd of February is the birthday of, what was his name, his first name, I don't remember, the famous composer Mendelssohn. Anyone remember his first name? German composer? Philip, not Philip, okay. Well, I know his English, his Hebrew name. His Hebrew name was Yaakov. Jacob, no. His Hebrew name was Yaakov, Jacob. Mendelssohn, he was born today, and he was a famous German composer in the 1800s, and a grandson of Moses Mendelssohn. Moses Mendelssohn, as we know, he was one of the Felix, okay, yes, Felix. He was one of the, but his Hebrew name was Yaakov, right? Doesn't say.
I think it's Felix. Yaakov, usually.
Yeah.
They-
Yeah, okay. So Yaakov Mendelssohn sounds like a very Jewish name. Composer Mendelssohn. I want to mention this. His birthday today, and we'll mention this regarding this statement that we just mentioned. His grandfather was an Erlich Yid, Moses Mendelssohn, Moshe Mendelssohn. He was a tremendous thinker and scholar. He did many great works. He was the first translator of the Bible into German.
Wow.
Yep. The Vilna Gaon praised his works tremendously. But he had a lot of very twisted philosophies of Haskalah. The purpose of Torah learning is intellect. And we have to be open to all forms of intellect and other sciences. His motto was, "Frum in the home, assimilation in the streets. Be a Jew in the house." Now, he was a firm Jew. He was an Erlich Jew. He didn't break halacha, as far as I know. But his philosophies led to a movement called the Haskalah movement, which took off to the areas that we all know where it ended up today, which is the Reform movement. The Reform, not conservative, the Reform movement is a direct lineage from Moses Mendelssohn. Moses Mendelssohn had followers who took his ideas of assimilation to step after step after step until the assimilation of the outside entered assimilation in the inside, and the next generation of his movement contained heretics, people who were apostates. They denied belief in God, and
That's not good.
of course it's not good. Listen to what I'm saying. The Reform movement came from him. The Reform movement in the United States originated in Europe, originated in Berlin. One of their big leaders, his name was Lowenthal. In the 1860s, he was thrown out of Russia, and he moved to Cincinnati and began the Reform movement in Cincinnati in the 1860s, and he is the father of the Reform movement in the United States.
His father was Hashav Yid. That's what you were
One
saying.
second. So Felix Yaakov Mendelssohn, his grandfather was Moses Mendelssohn. But what we say before? We said before, a person who learns Torah, and he knows that he's attaching to the Eibishter and doing it with his simcha. And the Torah is not just an intellectual piece of wisdom like mathematics and science. He merits that his children and children's children also follow in the path of Torah. However, one who is not careful in this, what does the Bach say in the Mishnah Brura? He does not merit seeing his descendants following in his path. Felix Mendelssohn was baptized at age 6 by his father. As we know, Mendelssohn's children all became Christianized, and he grew up as a Christian. He completely threw out his Jewish heritage, and he was B'stam Matinik Shenishba, a child of 6 years old. He doesn't have a choice. But this came from a philosophy which led to this path. That's what we're reading here. If you plant the seed the wrong way, don't cry when the fruit tree does not bear the fruits you intended. The Tzlach, Rabbi Yehuda, in his commentary on the Talmud, writes that reciting Birchas HaTorah with proper concentration is a segula for memory. So anyone trying to fight memory lapses, and you take pills, you take your omega-3 acids every day, and everything you do, one of the things to fight it is Birchas HaTorah with Kavanah. Interestingly, I'll just go back to the history, just for a moment. This Lowenthal individual, who was one of the heads of the Haskalah movement in Russia, that moved to Cincinnati after he was thrown out of Russia in the 1860s. So the history is very interesting. One of the main groups that engaged in the battle against the Haskalah movement was Chabad. So for those who know the history, the Haskalah movement birthed from people. It wasn't like a movement that had Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox weren't around yet. There was just Orthodox. That's all there was. There wasn't any other option. There was just the shtetl. And the Haskalah movement that opened up began recruiting people from Lithuania, Europe, and Russia to join this new movement of openness and assimilation, etc. Again, with good intents to begin with. The Misnagdim were totally, they didn't see the danger in it in the beginning, and that's why, as I said, the Gra gave askamas to Moses Mendelssohn's works, and even some Chassidim, some of the Polish Chassidim, or the German Hasidic groups, were also didn't see the dangers. He was very close with Pinchas of Karetz, or no, Pinchas Shapir, not Pinchas of Karetz. It's the Baal Hafla, the brother of the Shmelka of Nikolsburg. So he was part of German culture, and he was friendly, or not opposed to at least, to Moses Mendelssohn. People didn't see, not everyone saw right away the dangers of where and what this can lead to. But the Alter Rebbe was always opposed. The Alter Rebbe was on the forefront of the fight against the Haskalah movement, and this created a lot of friction between the two movements. There's the Rebbe Rayatz penned the historical jottings regarding one of their moles that they planted into the city of Vilna. His name was Shimon Mizamoch. Shimon Mizamoch was one of the leaders of the Haskalah movement. He was planted as a mole in the Vilna community to start a school, Talmud Torah, and then eventually send the kids to Haskalah colleges in Europe, in Germany, which he did. And so they were trying to recruit Chassidim also to come and join, and the Alter Rebbe refused. There's a whole story that's written down. The story is the diary of the Shimon, this Shimon Mizamoch. He wrote a diary. We have his diary, and in his words, we have the story. Intellectual. Okay, intellect. So the interesting part is like this. His grandson, this Shimon's grandson, was Lowenthal, or Lelenthal. Lowenthal. That was his grandson. This is who was the leader of the Haskalah movement 2 generations later. And so he fought with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe and him were in the fight. The grandson, Lowenthal, was in the fight with the Tzemach Tzedek. And in the early 1950s or 60s, when the Rebbe sent his first shluchim to Cincinnati, there's a letter that he writes, we're continuing the tradition of fighting the continuity of the Reform movement. This is where he moved to, Cincinnati. You can speak to what's Kalmanson. Rabbi Kalmanson is there. He can tell you all the history. He got a lot of direct messages from the Rebbe regarding how to deal with the Reform movement that began there. But we see the dangers where a person wants to take a novel approach in Judaism and make tactical changes that have never been done before and don't have basis in source. Even though it sounds parav right now, it can lead down a very bad road. And that's why we're so careful not to make changes. The Chassam Sofer says, Chadash Asum min HaTorah. If it was good enough for our forefathers, it's good enough for us. We try not to innovate and come up with new things. And okay, but this finds its the debate and the controversy enters different areas of how to integrate technology into, should we integrate it, should we not, or medicine. This enters a lot of different confusion. But in truth, it's referring to innovations within Torah philosophy. If now we have a certain vegetable available that wasn't before, we don't say, oh, Chadash Asur min HaTorah, you can't eat the vegetable. Okay, let's just conclude with the three brachas and what they mean. So, unlike other birchas hamitzvos where we get one blessing for our money, by birchas HaTorah we get three blessings, right? We say first, Asher Kedishanu, L'sasik b'Torah, according to Nusach Ashkenaz, or Al Divrei Torah, according to Nusach Sfarad. And then we have the Harivna, which is a dispute if it's a second blessing or not. Some learn it's the continuation of the first one. And that's why there's a Vav, V'Harivna. While others learn, no, it's a separate blessing. According to Kabbalah, it's a separate blessing. So that's blessing 2. And then Asher B'Charbanu is blessing 3. So I've never heard of a mitzvah that you say 3 blessings for. It's very strange. The answer, it's brought down that each one of these 3 are going on something else. The first bracha, Al Divrei Torah, or Al Asasik B'Torah, is going on the idea that you say a blessing before a mitzvah. Before every mitzvah, you say a bracha, Asher Kedishanu.
What's the English translation of it? Sorry.
Blessed are you, Hashem, blessed are you, God, that you have sanctified us with the command of saying words of Torah, which women are also commanded in for the mitzvahs that they are obligated to fulfill.
Because even when we are here in this class, we would have to, because we're learning, right?
Absolutely,
Torah, so
sure.
we have to say it before we come to this class.
100%. Yep. That's an interesting point. Maybe Chabad houses or anyone doing a public share to individuals who maybe aren't aware of this should start off with the bracha of Talmud Torah.
Right.
Okay, well, we just announced that. That's a good initiative. To begin with the bracha of Talmud of Birchas HaTorah. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one of Haravna is a blessing going on Hana. There is pleasure in an intellectual pursuit, in knowledge. That's what, right, we do all the time in the world. We're reading, we're gaining knowledge of things. It's one of the greatest and best pleasures a person can have, is intellectual pleasure. And so learning Torah, aside for its spiritual significance and attaching to God and fulfilling a mitzvah, also has a very physical pleasure it gives. And that's why lahavdil, we see how Torah learning has become a hobby even of Gentiles. Many Gentiles study the Talmud. Back in the day, it was very common for the Christian clergy to study the Talmud, both for knowing things about their religion and B, for intellectual pursuit. There was a certain librarian in Oxford University in the 1920s, I forgot his name, but he was a Baki B'Shas, a guy, Gentile, but a Baki B'Shas, like a computer. And G'dayli Yisrael wrote him Shilas.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's no meaning for guys in office.
Of course not. He's forbidden to learn Torah. A guy is not allowed to learn Torah. But this is after the fact. This guy knew. No, he was a guy. He was an Halacha guy. He was, I don't even know if he was Christian. I have no idea what his religion was. But he was a genius, and he studied the whole Talmud. And we have letters of Rabbanim asking him for sources if he knows.
He could have been a Jew and didn't know it.
And he could be a guy, as we assumed he was. Right? In South Korea, until now, they study Talmud. They sell. A lot of the sales of the sets of Steinsaltz in English are sold there. Not Steinsaltz and Schottenstein. You have a lot of sales. You go in a South Korean library, you see a whole set of Schottenstein Gemaras there. And you see Goyim sitting down and learning it. Maybe they even have in universities have courses on it. I'm sure they do. I can't imagine they don't. Okay, so that's the second one is on the pleasure, and the third one is Asher B'Charbanu. This is going on Birchas HaShvach, praising Hashem, just like the morning blessing. We praise Hashem for giving us a certain benefit. So to here we praise Hashem for the greatest of the benefits, and it's brought down to this third blessing is the greatest of the three, Asher b'chabona mikol ha'amim, and therefore, as we said, the emphasis of joy is to be most specifically in this one. Okay, that's it for today.
Wow.
We'll Meretz Hashem continue next week.
Thank you very much.
So, question, you get up in the middle of the night, and you're going to learn something because you're not going to go to sleep. All right. So you're not going to make everything because you're going to wait till Alos.
Right.
You're going to do Al Netilas Yadayim.
Right.
And
And Asher Yotzer, right, if you went to the bathroom.
All right, those are the first three, and then Birkas on the
And you have to say Birchster, yeah, if you want to learn.
That's
Yeah.
it. And then you wait.
You could technically do whatever you got the benefit from, but then to keep it simple, wait till Alois, and then you do the rest of them.
Okay, Alos, that means dawn.
Yeah, the third opinion, the latest dawn.
Latest dawn, I have a halachic thing here.
Yeah, they write the latest dawn usually. Meaning whatever is the later one, that's the one you should follow. If they have more than one dawn printed, like this sheet to this sheet to.
There's about 20. I'll show you here.
All right, so as I said, you follow the latest one.
All right. And when's the earliest Shema?
That's much later. The earliest Shema can only be said from Misha Yakir,
Okay, so it
which is
says
about
that-
60 minutes before sunrise. It's about 15 minutes after Alais.
Okay, that's that. It says earliest tells.
But that women aren't chayiv, and women can say Shema whenever they want. Women aren't chayiv in Shema in the morning.
Okay.
Women are chayiv in what?
I can
Shema.
say it.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm saying you could say it, but you can say it whenever you want. You could say it earlier.
Oh, I can say it earlier. so it
Yes,
doesn't
you're
matter.
not. Men have the obligation of saying Kriya Shema twice a day within the set time frame of morning and evening.
Ah,
Women are say Shema, but they don't have the obligation of the set time frame.
and it doesn't matter. I
But
mean,
it
if you
doesn't
say it
matter.
when you said time frame, is it better, worse? It doesn't make.
Well,
any difference.
it's better in the sense that a woman who can fulfill a mitzvah that men are obligated in and gets char for it. Yes, that is true.
Toda.
I'll turn it off. Okay.